J.J. McCarthy's career is going to be interesting because J.J. McCarthy he has kind of that it factor about him. People are going to pay attention to him, and he is simply a winner. Like you look at, he just won a lot of games at Michigan. He makes people around him better. There's some guys that just like part of the reason guys are 5-star quarterbacks, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, J.J. McCarthy, these guys just have a different level of drive to be great. You know, they're true just alpha males. They truly have a relentless mindset to be the best. And you ask them, honestly, they think they are the best. And it's not even in their reality that they're not going to go out and dominate, or at least try to dominate. I think that's what separates an alpha competitor from a guy who's just a competitor. The true alpha competitor, whether it's Michael Jordan, J.J. McCarthy, Tom Brady, Trevor Lawrence, is I'm going to practice as hard as possible. I'm going to refine my technique. I'm going to be obsessed with being great so much that it's not even like when I go out and dominate, I don't even question why I dominated, because I poured everything into practice. I poured everything with being as obsessed with being great as possible. And I think that's what people love about J.J. McCarthy. I think scouts understand that with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy has a chance to grow and continue to get better in the NFL. And yeah, the Minnesota Vikings, I think behind closed doors, Justin Jefferson was really fed up with Kirk Cousins. I think some Vikings fans were fed up with Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings understand that I think that's why there's so many projected trades of the Vikings getting J.J. McCarthy, just because McCarthy's a guy that can solve a lot of the Minnesota Vikings problems. Like, you feel like, yes, Kirk Cousins was getting them to the playoffs, but just like the NFL is evolving quickly, maybe not as much as college football, but just like I feel like the days of and Kirk Cousins is not necessarily a statue in the pocket, but the days of not having at least a mobile quarterback, like if you can't just even Matt Ryan too, for example, like those guys are still I think I guess what I'm trying to get at, I think the days of the pocket passer are done. Like, you'd argue Kirk Cousins does he have some mobility? Yes. But honestly, he's closer to a pocket passer than he is a scrambler. So I think the days of the I think Kirk Cousins really put a limitation on the Minnesota Vikings. You look at the Minnesota Vikings roster, it's a roster where it makes sense to move on from because their roster is just not what it was a few years ago. And I think with Kirk Cousins there, I don't think they're going to go. It'd be at least they'd have to build some more talent to even get to have a team that's capable of winning a Super Bowl. I think JJ, are they going to win a Super Bowl next year if the Vikings get JJ McCarthy? No, but I think he will dramatically improve them. Like, next year they could be a 9-win team, but they could be a 9-win team that maybe has some close losses, and a 9-win team that no one wants to play. And maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't, but you can just see the improvement. It's kind of like the Lions in 2022. The Lions had a rough streak that season, but at the end of the year, they were a team no one wanted to play, and people were like, man, if they did get in the playoffs, they would not want to play them. I think even though the Vikings were an average team this year, they may only win 1 or 2 more games. This is all hypothetical if they draft J.J. McCarthy, but I think J.J. McCarthy would make them a team where you're just like, oh man, we got to play the Vikings this week. So I think that's what a lot of Vikings fans are really. I think that's what's anchoring their hope in potentially drafting J.J. McCarthy. Guy just has an obsession to be great. It's what he talked about in high school, and he inspires others to work hard. I think that's kind of the thing. That's why leadership, you look at a business, like, what's the most important thing to help make a business succeed? It's leadership. You talk about what turned Michigan around 2021, 2022. McCarthy working so hard. McCarthy, it was Aiden Hutchinson too, working so hard and just an obsession to be great that it just becomes contagious. I think that was the thing with Tom Brady. It's just like Michael Jordan too with the greats. When you see someone around you becoming so obsessed with being great, Like if you don't try to at least up your game to try to be comparable with them, then you'd really just kind of stand out like a sore thumb. It's kind of like Michigan. Like Michigan beat Wisconsin in 2021, and Michigan got off the plane and and McCarthy and a few guys were practicing. Like that, some guys just have a relentless mindset. It's not even just in college too. You just see it with like some kids that even in middle school, high school, you can see some kids just are. I call it they're destined to be great, just because they understand that what they do is limited. Like you can't play football forever. What they do is temporary. And if what they do is temporary, they're just going to do it at the highest possible level possible. And that's the thing with JJ McCarthy. I think he is a guy that is just driven to do whatever it takes to be as good as possible. So yeah, him, Jefferson. The Minnesota has a decent offensive line too. You know, the GM Rick Spielman didn't leave the covered bare. You know, Darashaw's been a guy that's been capable at the tackle position in Minnesota. I mean, defensively, they've kind of, some of their pick, like Andrew Booth has not necessarily been great. Lewis Seen not necessarily been great. Kind of missed on some guys defensively. But it's kind of like Caleb Williams being locked to the Bears. It's one of those things where, yeah, the Vikings. Sure, do the Vikings have other needs? Absolutely, but the Bears and potentially the Vikings are, obviously they all hypothetical. The Bears and the Vikings, if they take a quarterback, they're holding out hope. If they take a quarterback this high, I should say, they are holding out hope that this is going to clear up a lot of problems. Like finding an elite quarterback just solves a lot of issues. It's kind of like if you have a company with a bunch of crappy employees, but you have like your management is just like elite. That can solve a lot of issues because there's the Pareto's principle. 80% of the work comes from like a small percentage of the people. So that theory kind of holds true a little bit with the quarterback position in the NFL. Like you look at whether it's Patrick Mahomes or potentially I think with Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy, those guys being elite at a position of value like quarterback, it really solves it. Suddenly, the Lewis Seen and Andrew missing on those picks. Obviously, Seen and Andrew Booth are still early in their career, but it looks like they've missed on those picks, and those are fairly high picks. Honestly, it makes those picks not look as bad.